Welcome to the Master Your Millions podcast, the show all about your financial potential and leaving a legacy for future generations. Here are your hosts, Jason and Scott Henderson.
Welcome back, everyone. I'm your host, Scott Henderson, and my co-host is Dr. J. We are experienced investors with a huge advantage as we have been able to learn from our family that has well over 100 years of experience in real estate and other alternative investments. Here on Master Your Millions, we seek to share that experience that we've learned and expand our knowledge as we talk to the top leaders in alternative areas of investing. We're super excited for our guest today. He's an old friend of mine. We met way back when I was on the doors myself doing summer sales. He is a father of two now, just had a recent newborn of 3 weeks. Dallin Hart, welcome. We're so happy to have you here.
I'm excited. Yeah,
Now,
this will be awesome. Getting away from the newborn thing, getting some sleep now. Yeah,
I'm happy to hear that. Give it another couple of weeks. I'm sure it'll change.
I'm sure it will. Yeah, my wife probably has a different perspective on sleep.
Sure. So for you listeners out there, we wanted Dallin to come on here because he is one of the best when it comes to interpersonal communication and sales. I've had the chance to watch him. Him and his twin are some of the top reps, not only here in Utah, but probably in the world. They do more volume themselves than I've seen some teams do, especially in selling door-to-door pest. But to kind of kick us off, Dallin, tell us, how did you get into this space? Where did your journey start?
Yeah, so it was 2 days after graduating high school. I flew out to North Carolina and drove up the coast to Pittsburgh. I was living in like a hotel room, selling for a company called Vivint, so alarm systems. Just a good friend of ours, my twin and I, he just told us, as we were finishing up high school, we were considering doing a few things. We were considering playing college football down at Dixie State or Snow College. And anyways, he said, "You guys want to go out to Hawaii and sell security systems door to door and make a bunch of money?" And we had no idea what he was talking about. I'd never even heard of door to door sales, really. And the company that we were going to go out with thought we were going to be terrible because we were in high school, and so they ended up telling us we couldn't go. And then we found Vivint, went out there, and then the rest is history.
So you go out there, you said you were 19
so it was
at the
crazy.
time?
18. Two days after high school, I missed my senior trip. All my friends went to California, and we went the other way to go sell. So.
And what did you do that first summer? How did it go?
So it went pretty good. I mean, comparatively, I was out there for about 2.5 months. When I got there were 35 other sales reps. Most of them were, 22 to 25. When we finished the summer, there were 9 of us left. There's me and my twin, and then a couple of the managers and a few of their brothers-in-law. We were pretty much the only ones left, but I sold 43 alarms. My twin did 54. We both made, I think, 16 or 17,000. One of the main memories I remember, I didn't have any money. I didn't have a car. So every night when I got home, I'd make some free hot chocolate, and I'd walk with my hot chocolate. As I was leaving out the front door of the hotel, I'd they had these coupons for a free 6 wings at Buffalo Wild Wings next door. And my dinner every night was hot chocolate and 6 free wings with some celery. And so it was a good summer. Learned a lot. All my friends were kind of fixing sprinklers that summer, and I got my butt kicked every day for a few months.
Yeah,
and
certainly.
So then you came back to school, or what happened the next?
Okay, so going forward, so I was at Weber State University. I was pre-dental. The plan was to be an oral surgeon or something. Did a semester there, and then I went on a mission. So I served in Chile, Santiago North, lived in Chile for 2 years. For listeners that don't kind of know, just proselyting about like the gospel of Jesus Christ. Came back in February. So I left in start of March of 2012, got back February 2014. And 3 days after getting back, my twin, myself, and that same guy that went out with us the first time, we drove to California to go try selling solar. At that time, door-to-door solar sales had just kind of started within the last year or two, right when I was leaving on my mission. So we went to Bakersfield, California. The company kind of told us, they told us come try it for a week. We went and tried it, and it ended up not being what we thought was in our best interests. And if we ended up going back out with the same office who we sold with before serving missions. And that summer, we really all kind of excelled a lot greater in terms of, accounts and door-to-door sales. My twin, myself, and our friend all sold right around 200 alarm systems, and we all made just over $100,000. So that's when we kind of figured out like we had a little bit of a knack for it. You want me to keep going along like the process of sales experience?
Yeah, like give us the overarching picture.
Okay.
Yeah, some lessons you learned, some failures.
Yeah, overarching picture. I saw that like focusing on something that was high risk and high reward, and putting in a lot more time than everybody else took away the risk and like kept the high reward. And so, made $100,000 that first summer. I think I recruited 42 of my friends the next summer, and it went terrible. One came back, and it was my brother came back. After that, kind of like, as far as sales goes, I was kind of getting sick of it, ready to move on. I had switched my major from kind of dental to finance, just because growing up, I saw like medical field stuff as secure. And like, I knew I was good at school, and if I just grinded through school and finished, I'd have like a kind of a set paycheck, I guess you'd say. But after doing sales, I saw the idea of business as less ambiguous and less risky. And I saw that I controlled more of what would happen. So I switched all my classes to business. I was planning on doing investment banking. I ended up getting an internship with a private equity group that also owned a pest control company. And because I had a history in door-to-door, they incentivized me to start doing that. And that's where things picked up a lot on like the door-to-door side of things. Running team.
So what was your best year? What was your best year in production?
So the best year was, personally, I sold like just over $500,000 of revenue in 4.5 months, personally. And then the best year we've done was just this last year. We did 12.5 million of revenue. Hopefully next year we do 30. We'll see.
Well, we'll have to bring you on and find out how you end up doing. So you
always try to do more.
Okay. So you've had this experience this whole time where it seems like, and you even stated it, that high risk, high reward, if you spend more time and more energy and understand it at a deeper level than anyone else, it takes out that risk. Have you been able to translate that to other areas of your life? Because I know you invest in real estate and other places.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, I think, so I just turned 30, like 2 months ago. And I look at all like the people who I, grew up around, friends, family, classmates, and I look where everyone's at now and kind of the path that they chose. And in my opinion, people's like professional success has little to do with like their ability and like their intelligence level, their knack for things. It has, in my opinion, more to do with just their risk tolerance. I just don't think there's that many things there's hard, like there aren't that many concepts that are too hard to figure out for anyone. It's just, are you willing to put in the time to figure it out and like take the risk? It seems like 99% of society, just all the decisions they make are how successful a situation can I be in with no risk at all. In my life, I mean, I've done a lot of some real estate stuff. Moving to BYU, the first property I bought was a duplex. It was 10 bed, 4 bath for $290,000, and the mortgage on that was like $1,300. And I remember when we bought it, there were 2 families living in it, and we kicked them both out and threw like 13 of our friends in there, paying like $350, $375 each. We were cash flowing $3,000 a month. And from a risk reward standpoint, like it was, I guess, risky to buy a house at all. I think I was 22 or 23. But the idea, a few years before that, somebody had started talking to me about like they wanted to do what Donald Trump had done. This was in Chile. And I really didn't know anything about real estate. The person that I was talking to just said, yeah, Donald Trump buys properties and other people pay for them. Like other people pay him off with the rents. Then he builds the equity. And I was like, oh, that's cool. Like, how does that all work? And started to learn about it. And so I know when I moved down to school, one of the main motivators to buy the first property was I just didn't want to pay anybody rent. So kind of tried to figure that out. But in general, just when I try to make decisions, I've always thought through, like with life direction, everything like that. I'm always trying to take risks at a young age, because if I fail, like I'm still young and can try to succeed again, I guess.
That's pretty cool. So when do you quantify those risks and list them out in your mind and be like, okay, so this is what I've got to figure out. This is how I divert it. Or do you just know they're there and only focus on, hey, this is the reward. This is the path I've got to go on. This is what I've got to do.
Yeah, I mean, I guess depending on what situation it is, I studied finance. I love like economics. I like to think through like the incentives of why things work the way they work. Just like the simple like supply and demand and who wants to buy something and what it's valued at. And so I like to think of like kind of the overarching 30,000 foot view. Aside from that, I'm big on like relationships and trying to find people that I trust. And I a lot of times make decisions and investments based on someone I trust's experience prior.
So walk us through that. Let's say you have someone else coming to you, someone new. How do you differentiate between who you trust? Is it just how long you've known them, their track record? What is it that you look for?
Okay, so like intuition and gut feeling is definitely something that I think, having sold as long as I have, as far as the law of 10,000 hours and to become a professional at something, I've done like negotiations, like intense negotiations for over a decade now. And gut feeling something that like I follow a lot. I also think that I spend time, like I focus on the conversations that I have and like little details and just making sure that everything checks out. Like if something's off, like if it's something that they say, even something really simple, like to me, like isn't true, then that's like a small indication of how, the rest of that, like that relationship could potentially go. If somebody like either stretches the truth or withholds the truth or whatever it may be on anything, then they're probably going to be willing to do it bigger scale. I guess is my initial thought to that question.
Cool. So after all this time, you've built up quite an organization, and I know it's not always If I could talk today, I know it's not always sunshine, flowers, and roses and stuff. What would you say would be your biggest failure to date?
Biggest failure to date. That's a good question, Scott. Um, Biggest failure to date from like an investing standpoint, from what,
However you feel,
you know,
whether it's investing, whether it's in your company, whether it's in sales, like maybe you had your biggest deal ever fall apart. I'd leave that up to you on how you would want to answer that.
sure. Yeah, I would say in general, like my, well, yeah, okay, we'll go with this. I'll say in general, like my, up until now, I think I've gotten better at quantifying risk over time through like failed opportunities that I took and risks that I tried to take, based off of like those other, the other qualifications I was talking about of like trust and just kind of like believing people. I mean, I gave a guy 175 grand, pretty quick, and maybe cancel it out. I gave a guy a lot of money pretty quick based off of everything he was telling me, and I didn't spend a lot of time looking at like the numbers. I looked over it quick and then briefly, and when I looked back after having invested that money, the numbers were all like future projections. So they all like looked really good, like an upward curve, and they're all like future projections of what could happen if things went well. So I guess something that I try to do now is base relationships and decisions and opportunities I'm trying to take off of what's in the rear view mirror with like that business or person's history, not what's in like the windshield. So not what they're telling me they're going to do, but like what I know based off of either what they're saying or what other people have told me has happened, in the last year, 5 years, 10 years, whatever. That's something that I try to going forward based off of mistakes I made. I remember sitting, another thing that was like a pretty quick, painful failure. All my buddies were investing, they were picking a stock with like Robinhood. It was really easy to buy stocks, and all my buddies were throwing $500 at this specific stock, $200, $500, because they all thought it was going to skyrocket. And I happen to have a lot more disposable income from what I do. And I think I put $25,000 on it. And it was the largest company in the previous decade to go bankrupt in the United States. So I think within a month or two, it was just nothing. And yeah, that was, I think like I have this mentality of taking risks to have high reward. And over time, I've gotten a little less trigger happy and tried to like take risks, but well, try to have that high reward, but mitigate the risk as much as possible and pay attention to what the risks actually are.
I gotcha.
What kind of mentors have you had in your journey? And tell us a little bit about, is there one that sticks out?
Good question. There's been a lot of mentors, from a social standpoint, as in just like friends of mine, from a work standpoint, whether they're like coworkers or bosses, familial, like my father, going back to that, like I was, lucky to be raised in an amazing family, and, my dad's my hero. It works very, very hard, super honest, really likable, controls his emotions, very kind, very service oriented. And, no one works harder than him. And I always, from a young age, took a lot of pride in the inputs I was giving, regardless of the outcome. And so like for the job I do now, it's, every day that I go to work, I want to work as hard as I can. And no matter if it's a really successful day, like monetarily speaking, or not at all, that's kind of like it doesn't really matter to me. I just want to know that I did everything I could. And as long as I know that, then I'm okay with the outcome. I'd say that I always tried to surround myself by mentor quality peers to motivate me to like kind of be the best version of myself. I was always strive to be, that same example to the people around me. Father, brothers, there's a lot of people in work that have, treated me really well and taught me how to, do business the right way. And looking back at those people, I'm really grateful for, who they are as men and how they conducted themselves. I think it's really easy to, almost like get greedy or make selfish decisions but I think that through some of my mentors professionally, I've tried to see both sides of every decision and try to make a decision that's equitable. I also think I've tried to surround myself with people that if I ever do feel like I have horse blinders on, that can be honest with me and tell me, if I'm seeing it the right way or if I need to look at it from a different angle.
So it sounds like to me you would buy into the idea that your network has to do with your net worth.
Definitely. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Well, let's shift gears a little bit here, and I want to know on a scale from say 1 to 5, what your understanding of the infinite banking concept is.
I would say 1. I don't know if I know what you're talking about.
You haven't ever heard it before? Have you heard of bank on yourself?
Infinite bank.
Infinity banking. There's a lot of different names out there.
I don't think so.
Wow.
Bank on yourself, seems self-explanatory.
Yeah.
Like invest in yourself, trust in yourself, bet on yourself.
Yeah, I can. This is strictly from a financial point of view. It's simply a way that you can own and control a banking system, if you will, and then you use that as a source of capital to go finance everything or anything you want. I mean, do you feel like you finance most of what you purchase?
Yes. Yeah. I don't really pay. No, well, I pretty much only ever paid cash for vehicles, but anything that's like real estate related, financed.
Okay, so let's take your vehicles for example. In the event you had that cash someplace that you were going to use for your vehicle, let's say it's growing at 10%, and you take it from that and purchase your vehicle, in a sense, there's a financing of that, right? The lost opportunity cost.
Yeah.
Right. So I like to say that everybody finances everything we buy. Generally, when we pay cash, it's the older version of ourselves. Let's say we do a 5-year loan on our car. It's ourself in 5 years. It's actually financing the purchase of that vehicle. And it's a concept that's out there that's been around for a couple hundred years, actually. And however, not a lot of people know about it. A way to own and control a private banking system where you can start to control your own environment. It's a place to store cash that's off the radar screen of the IRS. It's bulletproof when it comes to lawsuits and judgments. So it's something that's pretty cool. And I'm surprised that someone of your level of understanding in finance and in the world of investment doesn't know more about that.
I'm interested to learn.
Well, that's something we can do.
The idea sounds awesome. Some of the things you said, I'm really curious about. I think opportunity cost and like is my money in places that is most efficient. That's obviously like pretty clear idea.
Yeah, efficiency is a big deal. Also, there's a thing that we'd talk about called velocity. I mean, you know how banks work, right? Basically banks are buying and selling money, right? You walk into a bank and you deposit some money and they say, okay, we'll give it back to you when you want. From their point of view, they would enter that in as a liability. You walk back into the bank and say, hey, I want to borrow $100,000 or whatever, and you borrow it. That loan then becomes an asset on their balance sheet, right? So essentially, if they're buying it from the saver for however much percent, they turn around and sell it to a borrower at a higher interest rate and make the difference, right? Arbitrage. Very simple. And it goes on all the time. The thing that they want to do is to speed up that money as fast as they can. They'll always entice you to take a 15-year mortgage versus a 30-year mortgage. Why? For the fact that they can do 2 loans versus 1 in that 30-year time frame, assuming that you take it out to term. A lot of cool things, and something we could talk about. Another thing we talk to people a lot about is, do you have a will and a trust set up for yourself and your family?
I do not. No.
And is that uncommon, or is that something that most of your peers already have done?
I mean, my perspective would be most people that I know that are my age don't have those things set up. I could be wrong.
Why would you say that is?
I feel like most people don't plan for the future as much. They're just like living in the moment. I know, most people with paycheck to paycheck, or a lot of people. I definitely don't. I don't even have life insurance. I need to get life insurance still. I've said it a million times, but yeah, I don't know. I think it's
one of the things that we always talk about as well when it comes to that is who was it, Jason? It was Marlon that we were talking to the other day. And because his family hadn't set up a will and trust, he's been in a 40-year lawsuit between his siblings. It's completely torn apart the family.
The grandpa, and it's gone down 3 generations now, and how they're fighting over stuff.
But one of the interesting things that we see is when we bring on someone that's a little bit older, that's what the conversation always revolves around is, okay, how do I pass these millions on to the next generation? But then when we talk to someone younger like yourself, it revolves around, okay, well, how do we create it? And totally. So if you had to give one reason, is it just the age? Like death is just not on the mind and we haven't experienced it much? Because you're my age.
Yeah. I guess you just always assume that, an accident wouldn't happen to you. And so you'd have time to set something like that up later,
Mm-hmm. I was always thinking, tomorrow, I have another tomorrow. Another thing that's really a huge wealth eroder in our attempt to build millions is taxation. And real estate is one place where you get some write-off, right? Some depreciation. There's other ways that we can start to have entities that, like a trust, and other types of entities like LLCs that would make money for us. I mean, you've heard the term that companies make money as in individuals get taxed.
Sure.
So the more that you can run through an entity of sorts or have something that's outside you can reduce your own taxation, which then in turn allows you to keep more.
Right.
Cool. Well, I know we kind of threw a curveball there. And maybe we'll talk a little bit about that another time. And it's always interesting for me to ask some of those questions for people, especially some of the younger ones, like Scott says, that it's like, what, me? No, never thought of it. I'll do that when I'm, a real old guy, like 40 or 50 or whatever the number is.
Right. When all my kids move out, and I'll get a will.
Yeah. Well, even in life insurance contract, if you do it the right way, it's going to get better and better. So where you'd be the first beneficiary of your contract, that's the way you want to set it up. You don't want it to simply be something that's going to benefit someone else. I call that kind of insurance just death insurance. Sure. Anyway, enough of that.
Coming full circle, I want to know, Landon, what do we expect from you in 5 years? We bring you back on February 3rd, 2028.
Time out.
Dallin.
It's Dallin. That's Landon's the twin. This
Landon's
is
the twin. I'm sorry. Right. You're right.
Okay.
Dallin, where are you at in 5 years? We bring you back. What do we expect from you?
So in 5 years, I'd like to have a lot more passive income through real estate.
Put a number on it.
In 5 years, I probably would like to have, a goal would be to have like 250,000 a month coming in to real estate. So that's kind of the goal. And there's a lot of other goals with like, you know, the family and physically and all that stuff. But we're talking about how to make and keep millions. That's kind of the goal, through whether it's through you know, nightly rentals or single family homes, or, you know, commercial and industrial real estate. So we can hyper depreciate it. My wife's a real estate agent, so she has the real estate designation, real estate professional designation. So we were able to write off all the active income and everything like that. So working on keeping all the money we make.
Cool. So we're going to bring you on, and I want to see it. Yeah, it's a pretty good goal.
And I hope you're successful.
Oh, cool. Okay. Yeah.
Say, look, I said this time, I said this February 3rd of 2023, and here it is 5 years later, and I've done it.
Oh, wow.
That would feel good for you. And I hope that's the case. We'll bring you back on.
We'll hold your feet to the fire. It's going to go out.
What I said, 250,000 a month, right? Is that what I said?
Mm-hmm. That's right. It'll probably be the podcast episode. So heads up, like it will go out to like 10, 20,000 people. So you're going to have people knowing.
All right. Let's do it.
Perfect. Well, if you had to start over, and I should say in conclusion, if you had to start over and give a piece of advice to one of our listeners who's just beginning, whether they're a little bit older or younger, who are just coming up, what would you say?
Yeah. I mean, I would say learn to be risk tolerant, learn to take calculated risks and bet on yourself, and mitigate the risks that have to do with the high reward by working harder, putting in more effort than everybody else in that space. Because once again, I don't think anything is too complicated for anybody to figure out. So that's pretty much it.
Love it. Any final words from you, Jason?
No, other than thank you, Dallin. It's been great to have you on. It's fun to interview people like you that don't sit around and wait. Just get out there and get it going. That's real cool.
Of course.
Thanks for the opportunity, guys.
Of course. And if our viewers wanted to connect with you, how would they go about doing so?
Oh, I'm on LinkedIn. Yeah, this is probably that. Dallin Hart, president of sales at Green X Pest Control. I'm on other social media platforms, not super active, but I'm on Facebook and Instagram. Feel free to reach out. Love to make some new friends.
Love it. And remember, guys, we'll put all of that in the show notes down below. If you'd like to connect with Jason or I, hit us up on our Facebook groups, Instagram, Twitter, or shoot us an email. All links are still there down below. And don't forget, hit that subscribe button and leave us a review if you like the podcast. It certainly helps us out. In closing, remember, mastering your millions all starts with your mind and your team. Make sure they are the best. Catch you next time.
Thanks for listening to Master Your Millions with Jason and Scott Henderson. Check the show notes for any links or contact information about today's guest. Make sure to follow the show so you don't miss any future episodes.